Shane here. Welcome to the first of a small series of videos I'm going to be doing based on a series of vignettes and small dioramas or scenes I wish to recreate depicting various photographs or events from the Normandy campaign. So I kind of want to touch on at least most or the major combatant forces, the Germans, the British, the Americans, Canadians, Polish units, what have you, some of the other Commonwealth forces that took part. So, and to start off this little series, I'm going to show you the progress I'm doing on my first installment of my Normandy 44 series. It's not going to be a major series. Just a couple of episodes here and there on small projects I'm doing, like I said. So one of the most fascinating battles for me, or operations or events that took part during Operation Overlord. Again, you're going to be expecting loads of D-day dioramas and things like that. However, I always found the US Army Ranger assault on Pointe Du Hoc, that was basically a rocky promontory that separated Utah and Omaha Beach. And basically the 2nd Battalion of US Army Rangers was tasked with the rather arduous task of having to scale a 100+ foot high cliff under heavy fire to knock out supposed German 155 artillery pieces that could theoretically enfilade fire the entirety of both Utah and Omaha beaches. So these guns need to be silenced, so the 2nd Ranger Battalion was tasked to take them out. I'm not going to go into too much into the history now because I haven't read up on it in a while, so I don't want to be giving false information, if you will. Though kind of Pointe Du Hoc is kind of a good testament to the resourcefulness and commitment that would later go on to really define the US Army Rangers. They were faced with great difficulty from the get-go. In fact, they were even almost landed on the wrong beach until the Navy realised halfway during the disembarkation that they were on the wrong beach and had to turn around under German fire and sail up the coast. Their landing craft getting shot up as they did it. Then climbed up the mountain or the cliffside, found out the guns were never there. They'd been moved inland some time before. And then for 3 days ended to fend off from German counterattacks, relying on basically the Royal Navy to keep them alive with gunfire support. They lost about 75% of their strength. It was a pretty rough engagement, often overlooked by the bloodbath that was Omaha Beach. So I kind of wanted to show an idea of just how hard the fighting on Pointe Du Hoc was without building a very large diorama. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the composition and how I like to compose my scenes. So first things first, we'll just talk about how I built this. So this is a core of Oasis foam or balsa foam, the stuff you can get from a florist. Very cheap, very easy to sculpt, you can even do it with your fingers. However, it is very messy. I would strongly recommend that you do this outside or have your workbench prepared for it, because it does leave a lot of residue. It's very messy, so a way to be able to brush it all into the bin quite easily would be highly recommended. Then I just took some cardboard, cladded the sides, make it all pretty. But due to the very soft nature of Oasis foam, as it's also known as, I had to seal it somehow. So first things first, I tried using pre-mixed wall filler that works quite well on more rigid surfaces. If you're just using extruded foam or styrofoam, this will work very easily on it, but this is so soft it just can't adhere to it. So I landed up first putting down a heavy PVA mix over the foam. The PVA kind of reacted somewhat and began to dissolve, if you will, the base slightly, however not a big problem. And then to overcome this, then once I had let that dry for 24 hours, I put down a very heavy mix of PVA, some very fine grit and gravel, and a plaster of Paris mixed with a bit of water. Applied that on, and then put down 2 squares of extruded foam, which is that blue insulation foam, looking at the referencing photographs of Pointe Du Hoc, there's lots of reinforced concrete sections that came loose from the intense Allied bombardment and Tipperary airstrikes that went in to try to soften up Pointe Du Hoc for the Rangers. So that's going to be the backdrop. Also, 2 cocktail sticks is just for the locator pins for 2 figures, which I'll show you in the next video. They're not quite finished yet. So, composition. Well, firstly, I always prefer to step my diorama or vignette bases. This basically separates them from the floor and draws the viewer's eye into the subject. I also try to avoid straight lines, so I have this slight incline, and the figures themselves will be at a slight angle. This is to, again, the human eye when it comes to visualing, and it's the same kind of composition of photography and cinematography. We kind of like diagonal lines a little bit. It's kind of that symmetry we like. And this is something I find, and I was thinking about this quite a bit before I made this video. This is something that you must always bear in mind for making a good diorama, or vignette for that matter. It's a three-dimensional snapshot. So use every dimension that you can have. No point just having it down flat. The eye will wander and won't really know what to look at. So by stepping it up, it's not that difficult to do it. You can do it with balsa wood if you wish to, and just put a false bottom into it. It basically separates the piece from the ground, i.e. from your table, makes it stand out, draws it and focuses the eye onto your piece. It also makes it quite easy to put down something like, a little information plaque if you so wish. I'm not really too bothered about that. Also, when it comes to the composition of your figures, ask yourself, what do you want to show? Well, the 2 figures I'm using is from a master box set. I've done a lot of heavy work on one of the figures to make them more kind of D-day specific. And it's meant to basically showing one ranger pulling a wounded comrade out of the line of fire. Kind of, Rangers leave no man behind style thing, which is quite synonymous with the Ranger Creed, which basically was pretty much formed during World War II in Vietnam. And so again, you think a lot about how the figures interact, how the story to tell. Also, even though there's going to be a little bit of free space on this area of the vignette, I'm going to basically, I don't like having too much blank open space in a diorama vignette is not a good thing. The viewer's eye will wander. You always want them to focus in on the main scene, the main drama being told, if you will. Think of yourself as a film director, if you will, and you're trying to portray a certain emotion or a certain idea. So to fill that gap, I have a few German hand grenade boxes and a few spare stick grenades just lying around, which is also going to represent the fact that the Germans were dropping hand grenades over the side of the cliff as the Rangers try to scramble up these cliffs. So it's also going to be historically accurate, and then also implying that the cliff face is quite near the edge of this diorama. Also, the fact that since it's such a small vignette or diorama, it's kind of, anyway, what you want to see is in this case, we want to kind of imply there's more happening around the diorama, or outside the frame, if you will, of this little scene. So, you can imagine that he's dragging his mate back over towards the rest of his platoon or squad, and they're just out of frame. So that's the idea for this, and I hope I can accomplish this when we put it all together. And I'll talk more on composition as we go, because I've studied a lot in this, both in college and just reading up on actual dioramas. And that's how, if you ever look at the award, the internationally renowned diorama builders, the master diorama builders, I'm certainly not one by any stretch of the imagination. I don't even count myself a particularly good diorama builder, because I don't build enough of them. But I do invest a lot of time studying the rule of thumb, if you will, on how to build good dioramas that are visually appealing and stimulating. Because that's what we want. We want to inflame the viewer's imagination. Think about it, you're not just building it for yourself. Of course we build it for our own enjoyment, that's the first and foremost element why we do this. But if I have a person who comes over just to the house and sees this work, I want them to kind of come back with something, that they, instead of seeing a guy standing there to go, okay, this is telling a story. And if you come with that approach, again, trying to avoid straight lines, keeping things at angles in how we form the shot, also having a mental image of how we want to portray our dioramas and vignettes really helps. Again, sketching it out if you're not too sure. So in the second installment of this, I'm going to have this base fully painted up and weathered. It's going to be quite simple. It's just going to be kind of like sandy dirt because that's what kind of the photographs of Pointe Du Hoc tend to show, have these reinforced concrete slabs and the small rebar weathered up and rusted, and the figures painted up in place. And then the next diorama in this series will be actually a part of Adam Mann's Stuglife group build. I have a Panzer or Stug 4, and that's going to be a part of one of the Panzer divisions, or the Panzergrenadier divisions, that was present around the Normandy sector up near Caen, which is the main objective for the British sector of operations during the invasion. And that will be it down the way. And also we'll be doing a King Tiger and a few other smaller vignettes with German infantry and British infantry as well, and a few of the various paratrooper units. So do stay tuned to the end of this video. I have photographs of the genesis of this base to give you a better idea of maybe some of the steps that took place to get to where we are now. If you have any questions, please just leave them in the comments, and I'll try in the next video installment to answer any of them as best of my abilities. So as always, thank you for watching, stay safe, happy modelling, and watch out for those buses as always. Thanks very much, and stay safe. Bye bye.